What follows is a fact sheet about Gloria Steinem's operations against the various social and political movements in America, particularly her role in creating a hateful and virulent strain of black feminism that attacks black men while partnering with the white establishment. Gloria Steinem first came across the radar of black men in 1978 when Steinem put a book called Black Macho and the Myth of the Superwoman on the cover of Ms. Magazine, the magazine which she controlled. The book was written by a black feminist and activist named Maisel Wallace, who came out of nowhere. Wallace was in her early 20s at the time, yet she was being touted as the leader of black feminism. In the book, Wallace called abolitionists like Harriet Tubman and Sojourner Truth ugly and stupid for supporting black men. She called black revolutionaries chauvinist macho pigs and advised black women to go it alone. Gloria Steinem said that Wallace's book would define the future of black relationships, and she pushed hard to make sure the book received massive publicity. Gloria Steinem's work triggered a flood of hate black men books and films that continues to this day. Needless to say, some were quite suspicious of Ms. Magazine and Gloria Steinem. Why was Steinem sticking her nose into the affairs of the black community? So people started doing some research on Steinem. When it came out that Gloria Steinem was probably the ghost writer of the book with Michelle Wallace's name on it, Wallace had a nervous breakdown and went into hiding for 2 years. However, the damage was already done and the hate black men movement was off and running. But the research into Gloria Steinem's background continued. What follows is the findings of many different researchers. Bottom line, the so-called black feminist movement was created and manipulated by the CIA from the very beginning. The only difference between black revolutionaries and black feminists on this issue is that the black revolutionaries know they were infiltrated and manipulated, but black feminists are still unwilling to admit that they were infiltrated and manipulated, largely because they are highly invested in the hateful brand of black feminism. As a result, the Hate Black Men movement has become more than just a political point of view. It is now a central part of the culture of black women, and this fact has led to the destruction of the Black Revolution and the complete distortion of black relationships. And the CIA had a direct hand in creating this situation. The facts surrounding Gloria Steinem's CIA operations follow. Fact: Gloria Steinem is a CIA agent, and everything she has ever done throughout her adult life has been under the direction of the CIA. Fact: Gloria Steinem was recruited into the CIA before she even graduated high school. Fact: Gloria Steinem, who was from a poor and dysfunctional family and lived in a house without running water, was able to attend the elite and expensive Smith College. After she graduated, she spent 2 years in India spying for the CIA. She received a Chester Bowles Student Fellowship to study in India. This was a fellowship created by the CIA to cover Steinem's expenses in India. No one has received a Chester Bowles Student Fellowship either before or since Steinem received one. Fact: one of Gloria Steinem's first missions for the CIA was to manipulate the student movement. Most people are still unaware that the National Student Association was created, funded and manipulated by the CIA. Steinem did this by organizing student festivals in Europe in the 1950s and the 1960s. Steinem used the student festivals to spy on students for the CIA, and she likely used the festivals to recruit new agents for the CIA. A second and more successful mission was to shift the orientation of the women's movement and splinter the Black Revolution of the 1960s. Fact: in 1958, Cord Meyer, head of the CIA's International Organizations Division, had a plan. The agency would provide discreet funding to an informal group of activists who would constitute themselves as an alternative American delegation to the festival. The CIA would not only pay their way but also assist them to distribute books and publish a newspaper in Vienna. Among other individuals, Meyer and his colleagues hired Gloria Steinem to work with them. Steinem had recently returned from a 2-year stint in India. Fact: in 1958, Steinem was recruited by CIA's Cord Myers to direct the informal group of activists now called the Independent Research Service. This was part of Myers' Congress for Cultural Freedom, which created magazines like Encounter and Partisan Review to promote a left-liberal chic to oppose Marxism. It was this operation that Steinem's student festivals was a part of. Besides spying on students, Steinem also acted as an agent provocateur, helping to provoke riots. Fact: commenting on the CIA-controlled student festivals organized by Gloria Steinem, Sheila Tobias, an unwitting participant on one such trip, who later taught women's studies at Cornell University, said the CIA was interested in spying on the American delegates to find out who in the United States was a Trotskyite or communist. So we were a front, as it turned out. Quoted by Marcia Cohen in The Sisterhood, 1988, fact: further information of Steinem's CIA operations, working through C.D. Jackson and Cord Meyer, Steinem set up an organization in Cambridge, Massachusetts called the Independent Service for Information on the Vienna Youth Festival. She obtained tax-exempt status, and Jackson helped her raise contributions from various American corporations, including the American Express Company, a documented CIA money laundering operation. But most of the money came from the CIA, to be managed by Jackson in a special account. The entire operation cost in the range of $85,000, a considerable amount in those years. Fact: Gloria Steinem was considered a CIA whiz kid. A CIA operative named Samuel Walker, who made a career out of publishing and became president of Walker & Co., a New York City publishing firm founded in the same year as the CIA-funded Publications Development Corporation, worked well with Steinem. Walker evaluated Gloria Steinem's contribution to the CIA operations thusly: Gloria's group continues to do yeoman service, distributing books etc. to the point where the cry has gone up, never before have so many young Republicans distributed so much socialist literature with such zeal. Walker praised Steinem's female intuition and wrote, "Gloria is all you said she was, and then some. She is operating on 16 synchronized cylinders and has charmed the natives." C.D. Jackson to Cord Meyer, July 14, 59, with attached Walker diary. Walker to Jackson, July 31, 59, DDE. In other words, Gloria Steinem was not a naive dupe of the CIA, she was a highly motivated agent who took her own initiative to move against fellow students for the CIA. Fact: Gloria Steinem's name keeps showing up in projects associated with CIA operations. For example, From K-Birds the Chairman, John J. McCloy and the Making of the American Establishment, New York, Simon & Schuster, 199, pages 483-84, 727, in the summer of 1959, just before McCloy took his family for an extended trip to Europe, C.D. Jackson wrote to remind McCloy that later that summer a World Youth Festival was scheduled to take place in Vienna. Jackson asked McCloy to contribute a propaganda article. The piece would appear in a daily newspaper to be published in Vienna in conjunction with the festival. McCloy agreed, and the article was published, in 5 languages, in a newspaper distributed by a 25-year-old Smith graduate named Gloria Steinem. This is a student publication. How was it published in 5 languages? Well, the CIA did it, of course. Fact: when this covert operation was revealed by Ramparts magazine in 1967, Steinem told the New York Times that she approved the agency's role. "I was happy to find some liberals in government in those days who were far-sighted and cared enough to get Americans of all political views to the festival." Steinem's definition of a liberal then included such young men as Zbigniew Brzezinski, an assistant professor at Harvard. Steinem arranged to fund Brzezinski's visit to the student festival. Brzezinski would later become the National Security Advisor to President Jimmy Carter, 1977 to 1981, and he was the man who invented the so-called bear trap which suckered the Soviet Union into invading Afghanistan. Brzezinski was also the man who first organized and funded Osama bin Laden's jihad against the Soviets in Afghanistan. Gloria Steinem also identified and targeted Alice Walker in the early 1960s. She befriended Alice Walker and paid for Alice Walker to come to the CIA-manipulated student festival in Vienna. Alice Walker would later become the foremost writer of anti-black male hate books, all of which were funded by money funneled to her publishers by the CIA. Fact: Steinem has boasted in interviews with the New York Times and the Washington Post, in 1967, that her training with the CIA was good journalistic training because the CIA taught you to be accurate. This statement proves that Steinem was happy to collect money working for the CIA. Fact: Gloria Steinem worked with Carlos Bringier, the anti-Castro Cuban who staged the famous WDSU interview with Lee Harvey Oswald. Fact: Gloria Steinem dated J. Stanley Pottinger for 9 years. Pottinger was in charge of sabotaging civil rights enforcement at the Justice Department. He was Assistant Attorney General under President Nixon and President Ford. According to Donald Fried and Fred Landis in their book Death in Washington, J. Stanley Pottinger also helped to cover up the assassinations of Martin Luther King and Orlando Letelier. Pottinger also publicly defended Gloria Steinem against charges of CIA involvement which Steinem had already admitted. Why would a radical feminist like Gloria Steinem be anywhere near a guy like Pottinger, unless she was a government employee herself? Fact: Gloria Steinem dated Henry Kissinger, an international war criminal, establishment technocrat, and a long-time CIA operative for years. Why would a radical feminist date someone who was considered a mass murderer by everyone in the movement? You be the judge. Fact: one of the principal stockholders in Gloria Steinem's Ms. magazine was Katharine Graham. In the book Catherine the Great by Deborah Davis, the long-standing involvement of Graham publishing empire, which includes the Washington Post and Newsweek, with the CIA was documented at considerable length. Fact: Gloria Steinem has lied often about her career and where she gets her money. For example, she received money to start Ms. Magazine from the right-wing millionaire publisher. He publishes the racist New York Daily News, and real estate magnate Mortimer Zuckerman. Steinem lied to Vanity Fair, claiming that Zuckerman's provided no money for Ms. Magazine. But columnist Liz Smith revealed that Zuckerman had put $1.2 million into Ms. Magazine and sent his executives to help as well. Why did Steinem lie about this? Because her funding by racists, right-wingers, and CIA agents would damage her feminist credentials. And there has never been an adequate explanation of the original funding for Ms. Magazine nor for the rapid acceptance of feminist propaganda by the mass media in the early 70s. No radical movement has ever spread with the speed of feminism, which went from little or no organization and acceptance to total domination in less than 2 years. Obviously, it did touch very deep frustrations in American women, but it is difficult to avoid the fact that the existing movement was manipulated very effectively to channel these frustrations to the benefit of the business community and the detriment of women, children, families and especially black men. Fact: Gloria Steinem's fake literary career was conceived and executed by the CIA's Matrix operatives. One of Steinem's CIA colleagues was Clay Felker. In the early 1960s, he became an editor at Esquire and published articles by Steinem which established her as a leading voice for the CIA-manipulated feminist movement. In 1968, as publisher of New York Magazine, Felker hired Steinem as a contributing editor, and then editor of Ms. Magazine in 1971. Warner Communications, a known CIA front, put up almost all the money although it only took 25% of the stock. Ms. Magazine's first publisher was Elizabeth Fersling Harris, a CIA-connected PR executive who planned John Kennedy's Dallas motorcade route. Despite its anti-establishment image, MS Magazine attracted advertising from the cream of corporate America. It published ads for ITT, a CIA-supported corporation which helped engineer Operation Chaos in Chile, which led to the CIA overthrow of a democratically elected government. Fact: when NY Times reporters confronted Steinem with documentation of her connections to the CIA and CIA funding of her various activities, Steinem remarked that she got caught because CIA wasn't tricky enough. Hinting that CIA should have made better use of front companies, Steinem remarked, "The CIA's big mistake was not supplanting itself with private funds fast enough." By the time Steinem founded Ms. Magazine, the CIA had learned how to funnel money through private individuals and corporations. That's how Steinem was able to fund Ms. Magazine. Her CIA funding was so substantial, that Steinem was able to do the unprecedented: she stopped accepting advertising for Ms. Magazine. She didn't need any more advertising, because CIA money has been keeping her expensively produced magazine afloat from the very beginning. Fact: Gloria Steinem had the CIA power to successfully censor 3 different publications: the book The Feminist Revolution, a Village Voice article, and a New York Community newspaper article. All 3 publications documented Steinem's involvement with the CIA. Nevertheless, a story about Steinem's CIA connections appeared in the Village Voice on May 21, 1979. Fact: An organization of radical white feminists called Red Stockings outed Gloria Steinem as a CIA agent. When Red Stockings tried to publish a book called Feminist Revolution in 1979 with a chapter that detailed Steinem's CIA connections, Steinem and her powerful CIA-connected friends forced Random House to delete the chapter on Steinem. Nevertheless, the chapter on Steinem's CIA connections appeared in the Village Voice on May 21, 1979, but only after the Village Voice had been threatened by Steinem's lawyers. The book Feminist Revolution is still available. You can buy the censored version from Red Stockings for $8. For $4, or free if you buy Feminist Revolution, you get the censored section, which contains detailed material on Steinem's early work with the CIA, and an account of how this story was censored after originally being scheduled for publication. Who were the powerful people who put pressure on Random House, the Village Voice and Red Stockings on Steinem's behalf? Katharine Graham, publisher of The Washington Post. Graham is a known CIA agent. See the book Catherine the Great by Deborah Davis. Franklin, Uncle Thomas of the Ford Foundation. The Ford Foundation is a documented funnel for CIA funds, and Warner Communications, a Ms. Magazine stockholder and CIA propaganda company. Fact: Since the middle of World War II, the United States intelligence establishment has spent billions of dollars researching mind control techniques and inventing mind control technology. Thousands of people were kidnapped, drugged, hypnotized and tortured as a part of the CIA's mind control research and field testing. Many of these victims began surfacing in the 1980s. These victims were having strange dreams and flashbacks. This was dangerous for the CIA because their mind control operations could be exposed. So the CIA created, funded and controlled a number of organizations that floated the idea that these victims were suffering from strange dreams and flashbacks because they had been sexually abused by their parents as children and had repressed those memories. This would become the perfect way of misdirecting the search for who really victimized these people. Strangely enough, Gloria Steinem teamed up with Ted Gunderson to foment the satanic child abuse hysteria as a way to help cover up the CIA's mind control experiments on human beings. Gunderson once bragged about being one of the top FBI COINTELPRO supervisors during the wipeout of the Black Panther Party in the 1960s and 1970s. For the inside story on Steinem's operations with Gunderson, read Satan's Silence, Ritual Abuse and the Making of a Modern Witch Hunt by Debbie Nathan and Michael Snedeker, 1995. Fact: In 1975, Gloria Steinem, 2 important feminist leaders, Carol Hanisch and Kathy Sarah Child, again accused Steinem of working for the CIA and directing the movement toward moderation and capitulation. Steinem ignored the accusations, hoping they would go away, but then noted feminist Betty Friedan implied that a paralysis of leadership in the movement could be due to the CIA, and she demanded that Steinem respond. After 3 months, Steinem wrote a 6-page letter to feminist publications describing her work with the CIA. "I naively thought then that the ultimate money source didn't matter," wrote Steinem, aiming to dispel the charge that she was a government operative. However, the government was indeed keeping tabs on the feminist movement through female informants paid by the FBI and CIA, and Steinem was a part of that. See The World Split Open, How the Modern Women's Movement Changed America by Ruth Rosen. Fact: Here's a list of how the kind of feminism advocated by Gloria Steinem has actually benefited the business community when it pushed women into the workplace. Women work for less, and black women work for a lot less. Women are more docile and less likely to deviate from company policies, and black women are the most docile workers of all. Women are less likely to join labor unions. By increasing the size of the labor pool, women created more competition for jobs, thus reducing wages. More female workers means more pussy for the boss. Black female executives are notorious for being passed around among white executives mainly because their low self-esteem makes them think that such attention is a compliment. Do you know any white male executives? Talk to them when you get a chance. They use the term instant pussy when referring to the black female executives in their companies. In two-income families, one person is more likely to work part-time or as a temporary. Such workers get paid less and they don't get benefits. Taking children away from their mothers at an early age tends to increase their anxiety levels and results in higher rates of tension-relieving consumption as they grow up, and black folks have become super consumers, especially black women. The loss of women's household services increases purchases of various forms of fatty fast foods, which have higher profit levels than home-cooked meals. This has particularly affected black women. Their blubber index has skyrocketed. This video isn't about hating on no particular person, group or gender. It's about shedding some light on how we got to where we are now. You can't make checker moves while in a chess game and expect to win. Know the game. There you have it. KIK, knowledge is king, get into the know. Peace.